Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth, the wisdom is sound in the Retic Rundown. We're breaking new ground. From the jungle's deep to the captive scene, we control the world if you know what I mean. With patterns so bold and sizes extreme, in the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth and let the wisdom resound. In the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Unlocking secrets of the serpentine kings, sharing knowledge, stories, everything it brings. From breeders to keepers, we pull the strings in the Retic Rundown. Hear the echo rings. Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth and let the wisdom resound. In the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Welcome, Retic lovers. Welcome, Retic lovers.
All right, what's happening, guys? Sorry, we're starting a few minutes late. I was having technical difficulties with my camera not wanting to start, so I had to switch to my laptop. But welcome back, Retic Rundown, and this one is going to be awesome. We're going to do advice from new breeders. This is their first year that they've bred, and I think there's something to be said about that information that comes, from that first year and just hearing it. I know we got a lot of aspiring new breeders, so hopefully this is a good episode, for you guys. Before we jump in, let's see who all's in. We got Susie, we got Heartland. What's up, buddy? Jay Lunsford, Maria Tabor. How are you? Who else we got? Christine, how are you? What's going on? Eric's in here. Good to see you, buddy. So it's good to see everybody. Glad you guys tuned in. So, you know what? Before, as always, the rocket ship reminds you to support USARK and USARK Florida. So make sure you guys are doing that. They fight for our rights, and it's an important thing, so make sure you guys are supporting USARK. Last but not least, Mike Johnson in the background that's making this work. The Herp Collectors Network. He is the man that makes this all happen. So thank you, Mike, for everything that you do. And since we're running behind, let's get right into it. So first up in the chute is I'm going to introduce you guys to Leon Badura. Leon, what's happening, man?
Same old, man.
Yeah, I hear you, man. So appreciate you coming on, talking with us and stuff tonight. So this is your chance. Tell everybody about you and what you do and where they can find you.
Located in Washington, PA. Just got into this thing because it's my passion, man. Just trying to create some beautiful animals, make things happen. It kind of turned into I guess you could say like a disease for me. Once I had one, it was curtains. My basement turned into this.
Yeah, my basement looks that way too, man. I get it. So I totally get it. So if somebody wanted to find you, Instagram, Facebook, anything like that, where are they going to look?
Prolific Pythons. I usually try to stay pretty current on posting on there, keeping updated. Still work as a GM service technician for my regular 9 to 5. Got a daughter, a wife, so it's a balancing act,
It's always busy. So cool. All right. How many snakes are you up to now?
27-ish as of the other day. Trying to focus more, I guess. Going through my newcomer woes. So got 24 in the incubator right now, due next Monday. They should be 85-ish. Dabbling in super dwarf stuff. It's always forever evolving.
Yeah, no, it is. And as it should be, as you're getting into it, you learn stuff and it should be evolving,
Yeah.
So for sure. Cool. Well, thanks, man, for coming on. Next up, we got Chris Scar.
Shar,
my fault. Well, if I hadn't had technical difficulties, I would have asked that question to make sure that I, knew how to pronounce it right. But I apologize. So,
That's all right. I
hey
did that
man,
one quite a bit.
tell us about you, brother.
So I'm from central Wisconsin. Kind of grew up in the rural areas all my life. Had snakes ever since I was a kid, without my parents' permission a lot of times, in shoe boxes. And then grew up, moved out, and had a boa constrictor, and just kind of blew up from there. And now I have 19 different snakes in the house, 16 different retics, 4 different localities of them. Um, you know, just enjoying it. Decided
Yeah,
to give breeding a whirl one time.
building it up, right?
Yep.
Nice. All right, cool. And where can they find you?
So there's 2 places you can find me. One is on Instagram at Shar92. Simple enough there. The other one is Facebook on my business page is Shar's Serpents.
Nice. Well, man, I appreciate you guys coming on, giving me some time. So, last up in the shoot is going to be Alastair. I'm not going to try to pronounce this. Sorry. Tell me how.
It's all good, man. Last name Nagier. It's just Alastair Nagier.
I wouldn't have been far off. I wouldn't have been too far off, but that was one of my deals. Like being in the military, we've seen all kinds. We all pronounce, our name tapes are all last names. So like,
Yeah.
I'm like big on that, trying to make sure that we pronounce people's names right.
I've never been big on pronunciation. As long as I know you're referring to me, that's all that matters.
I feel you. I hear you. So give us a little bit about you, brother.
Yeah, so I'm Alastair. I'm one half of DNA Retics, the other half being my wife, Denise. We're based out of sunny Southern California. Again, new to all this, just had our first clutch hatch about a month ago. So we got 13 in the rack right now. 8 other Retics as part of our core cohort, so 21 total. And if anyone trying to reach me, the easiest place to find us is on Instagram. That's where I feel we're most active and easiest to talk to. And that's DNA_Retics on Instagram.
Awesome. So I love this. I love that you guys all came on because, I've had interactions with all of you, throughout you guys coming up, through all this, so I really do. I appreciate you guys coming on. I think you guys are going to give some really good information that's going to be fresh, like you're not thinking back and then also like, oh, there's these years and I give this, like I wanted that first year information, because I remember for me when I had that first clutch and it was like, golly, this is new, this is different. And then I, like Leon said, it's always evolving, so
Exactly.
It's a learning experience. But cool, man. Well, all right, so you guys ready to do this?
Let's do this, baby.
All right, cool. So you guys know the deal. It's 3 minutes per question. If I feel like you kind of come to the end of your answer and we got some time left, I got some bonus questions to kind of throw in there and help you guys out. And we're going to make it happen. You ready?
Cool.
All right. I'm pretty sure, I think Leon's first up in the shoot, man. So with this one, bud. All right. What was the best advice that you got early on, and do you feel that it held true?
Best piece of advice I would say was a couple of them. It was Slow and Steady by my friend Tim Ritchie.
Tim's awesome.
And Jake Klotz too. Jake always tells me patience. Find some genetics you want to work with, focus on those. Is it true? Absolutely, 1,000%. Do I follow it all the time? Not necessarily. Like I still get those moments when I see a pretty retic that I absolutely have to have, and it just doesn't fit in my breeding plans at all, and I end up buying it.
Right.
Controlling them impulses is super hard for me. Staying focused on what I want to produce and what I want to work with is difficult. But nonetheless, I still always consult my OGs. You're one of them, Joe. When I was going through my hatching stuff and being paranoid about my temps and hatching conditions, box conditions, incubator stuff. This is actually my first year I consider producing because last year I had incubator issues and lost probably out of 60, 50 eggs.
Ugh, that's
And
a hard hit.
it was rough. I wanted to tuck tail and run, you know what I mean? But probably 3/4 of the way through the season, I went out and bought a Wilbanks incubator, you know, held true to what everybody told me. And I ended up salvaging like 10 or 12 eggs out of that, you know, first year. But this year, I vowed to myself to try to turn it into a science as much as I can. I got Govee Bluetooth to my phone, like parameters set up on my temperatures, and like everything's going pretty well. You know, it's always a learning experience, and it's always evolving. You know,
Right.
and it's, you know, just because somebody does something different than I do doesn't necessarily make it untrue or, you know, wrong. Everybody has to tweak their program to make it fit their lifestyle and their needs and their outcome. You know what I mean?
Right. No,
Different
for sure.
Different folks.
Yeah, I mean, the last episode we had Abby on, and she does the maternal incubation, which is, you know, completely different. So I definitely get that for sure.
So I'm trying to go back, I guess you would say, to that slow and steady and staying focused and trimming down a little bit of my collection and just going to sit back and raise up what I got. You know, I just bought some, well, I'm in the process of buying some Thunder from Jake right now and raising up some pretty killer animals. I wanted to get into the higher end genetic.
Keep going. Finish
So-
your thought.
I'm just trying to, you know, refocus and pull back right now. I had one of them spells of like, oh my God, it's beautiful. I got to have it. And
It's
so,
easy to do. I did it too, for sure. So
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, man.
All right. Cool. Thanks, man. Chris, what about you, man? Like, what was the best advice you got early on, and do you feel it held true?
So two different things. One of them touches on what Leon said is the patience aspect, but in mine it's don't force them to breed when they're not ready. Let them grow up, you know. Don't just stuff them with food to get them upsized, because that's going to be unhealthy for the animal, you know. And don't, just because they're upsized doesn't mean you can throw a male in there and have them go. You're going to end up with, you know, a major problem. You could have a fight going on or a vet bill you don't want. So, you know,
Right.
just, you know, patience on that end is what I was told. And Matt Martin gave me some advice on what to look for. And he goes, just learn your snakes, watch them every day, and look for their behavioral changes, especially because he was in Minnesota, so not too far in the temperature climate from me. He said, watch for like a change in the season, you know, whether you got a cold front running in, you know, just look for those changes, look for the behavior. If you see her hugging the cold sign, that's a sign that she's starting to get ready, and then start slowly introducing her, you know. So it's 100% true on the patience aspect there. You know, you still got to respect them.
Right. Okay. What would be like one thing you wish you had known before your first pairing that you know now after, like, you know, watching your animals and stuff that you didn't get told but you figured out?
Oh boy. You know, I wish I could answer that, but I can't think of something off the top of my head. I'm sure there's something, you know.
So I definitely think, like, when you learn your animals, you know, like, that's going to be a key part, right? Like watching
Right.
their behaviors. So,
You know, I
and
think-
not everyone's the same. They all have their personalities, you know?
Right. I think for me, one thing I wish I would have known is actually seen somebody's animal going through the follicle development stage, the swelling beforehand, you know, because every time I thought it was happening, it turns out it was just she had to evacuate some weight, for lack of a better term. You know,
Right.
It wasn't actually the follicle development. It was just she was ready to go, and then she'd shed out, and well, then you start the timer over again.
Oh, yeah. It's like restarting, and you're like, man, do I know this? Do I not know it? It's always
Yeah.
that first time that it's like, you're asking everybody that's done it and they're trying to give you that advice, you know, and you're like, oh, is this what I'm looking for? Is it not what I'm looking for? Because you just don't know, you know?
I wore out Lucas's phone number, giving him calls just about every other week to, hey, does this look like it to you? Does this look like it to you? And I'm sure he got sick of me, even though he didn't. He says he didn't, you know, and we still talk, you know.
Oh, yeah. No, and that's where good people that are going to mentor you, you know, it can definitely feel that way, but if they're not telling you to, hey, you're bugging me too much, then you're good, you know?
Right.
All right. Alastair, man, what you got?
I would say the best piece of advice that I got is that if you're thinking about breeding or you think you may want to breed in the future, just make sure that you start with legit animals, right? Start with a good stock, a good foundation stock. So in the retic community, in the super dwarf community, bloodline, lineage, heritage, whatever you want to call it, is super important. People, they want to know where the animal came from, and they want to know that it is what you claim it to be. And I think that's even more important when you're in a situation such as ours, where you're the new guy on the block, you have no reputation. At that point, you're basically standing on the shoulders of the people who produced your foundation animals, right?
That's a good point.
And if you don't have that information as to who produced those animals, then you're going to be in for a tough ride, right? Like,
right.
For example, looking at my animals for my clutch, where'd the male come from? Male came from Reach Out Reptiles. Bought it from you, Joe. Joe's a solid dude. Bloodline's traceable. Okay, male checks out. What about the female? The female came from Eric Lee. Eric Lee's a solid dude. It was produced by Brian Samala. Okay, bloodline's traceable. Female checks out. So now the pairing is legitimate, and people are going to respect it and, you know, take it more seriously. And I think that's even more important in this day and age, because with all the information out there, the YouTube videos, the podcasts, Glenn's book, people are becoming more educated. And the more educated people become, the more picky and selective they become. And so if you're someone who's trying to break into this space, someone who's trying to become a new breeder, you need to be able to keep up with the demands of the customers in terms of the information that they want and the quality that they want.
Right.
You know, piggybacking off what Leon said, man, like, it's easy to get caught up in the hype and the FOMO. You know, you're scrolling on Morph Market, and then you see an animal that you're like, damn, that's the one that I want. Take a few moments, pump the brakes, do some research, reach out to the person who's selling it, ask them a couple questions. You know, did you produce that snake? Okay, cool. Can you tell me more about the parents? If that person didn't produce the animal, who did? Then reach out to that person who did produce the animal and just verify, did you sell that to so-and-so? And is that what it is? You know, what they're listing it as, is that what the animal is? Just taking a few moments to do some research and just pump the brakes a little bit and making sure you're starting with some quality animals, it's going to save you a lot of headache and hassle in the future.
100%. I fully agree with that. So that's a great point right there. So guys, I will tell you, like, from my perspective, that if you want to start, the biggest thing is, you know, they hit on it with patience, right? The other side of it is, if you're wanting to produce, you know, the next best thing, that, you know, somebody, if you bought your animals, then I promise you somebody's ahead of you. And you have to be okay with that, right? Like, somebody is going to be ahead of you if they're producing what you have, and you pick up a 75%er. Guess what? In 2 years, if they keep a male off of that and they run it to a pure, they're going to make an 87.5%er. And that's just the way it goes, you know? So somebody that's got into it before you, they're going to be ahead of you. So be okay with that, and don't feel like you have to, like, trade up every, you know, 2 years, and then you never actually get an animal that gets to size, because you're always like, oh no, I'm going to breed the next best thing, and I'm going to let these animals go because it's not going to produce it. There's some patience there, for sure. And if you're new, the other thing I would tell you, raise your animals up. That would be a big key there, you know, that I would give you guys. Raise your animals. it's easy to want to get into like adults, but I'm telling you, and then if you've listened to this podcast before, I've given this advice before. Getting an adult, especially if you have no experience breeding, it doesn't actually make it go any quicker half the time. So raising those animals, understanding your animals, it makes a big difference. So cool. Appreciate that. That was good, guys. I like it. All right, Chris, you're up first on this one, man. What's one mistake that you've seen other new breeders that are in your same position making that you avoided, or maybe one that you learned the hard way? Like what's something that you've got that you would tell anyone else?
Don't grow your collection too quick, too fast. You ain't got to jump in and buy, like what Leon and Alastair both said before. You ain't got to buy every animal under the sun because it's pretty and you want to produce yin and yang and this and that. Start out slow. Get a male and a female, and really think about what you want to produce. Don't just get something to get something. Don't just make the next thing and just to have it. Advance the hobby. Advance the bloodlines. Advance the colors of the animal, so to speak, if you want. That's one of them. You see it all the time, and this isn't to bash the ball python world, but how many times do you look at a ball python and there's 20 different names behind whatever it is: het, paper bag, het, sandal, 100% lunchbox. I don't know the marks or the names of them, but you see them and there's 8 different genes in this thing, and it's looks like a turd with a tail and a head, for lack of a better term.
Oh yeah, no, and you definitely see that too in retics, where it gets literally so gene stacked that it's like there's nothing to that animal, as far as what they actually look like. Now they can produce some really cool stuff, and I'm not against that. Like if you want to breed that 7 gene, shoot for the moon male to do, that all-inclusive breeding to get a bunch of stuff, cool, but it's not actually a beautiful snake, like in that aspect, right? It's about what it can do.
Right. Maybe just have like a 1-2, maybe a third hidden gene, and then try and add different influences into it, whether it's through different localities or a morph that works within the same parameters of what you have, like albino and Indo caramel to make an orange glow. Maybe look at a different locality that has more black or more silver.
Right. No, yeah, I 100% agree. Like when you're looking at localities, Rodney, despite like all of his bullshit that he space, I mean, he's on point when he's talking about matching, that locality to the morph and making it look the best that it can,
Right. And I actually have a pair of his snakes downstairs right now, a couple of Halmaharas.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I think Hamas are going to be great for, certain morphs, and then those marbles that he just produced are, honestly, I told him, I was like, those are some of the best marbles I've ever seen in my life. Like they were absolutely phenomenal, and he's got a point there. So that's something to really be on point with and think about whenever you're breeding. And like Jordan from Heartland just said, don't chase the world's first, chase your world's best.
100%.
So, all right. What about you, Alastair? What you got?
Yeah, kind of similar. I mean, I would just say not having a why or not having a reason behind the pairing. Don't just simply take 2 snakes and rub them together just for the sake of it, because you might end up with some offspring that no one really wants, right?
Right.
So take some time, sit down, think about what you're passionate about and what you think is going to push the retic community further, and then come up with a game plan from there. Like, are you trying to shrink down a certain morph and increase the percent SD? Are you trying to add some locality influence to a project? Are you trying to preserve a certain locality bloodline? Are you trying to add some more genetic diversity to a project? Have a reason behind the pairing besides, simply having a female that's cycling and a breeder age male, right?
Right.
So for example, for me, why did I do the pairing that I did? Well, because I want to produce some genetically diverse, good-looking, pure SDs with a little hint of Madu influence to them. I figured, okay, what will be the benefit from this project? Okay, for the breeders, they're going to get some pure SDs, some good-looking pure SDs that they can use to shrink their projects down. And then for the pet owners, they're going to have a snake that allows them to own a retic without the fear of it becoming mainland size, if that's something they don't want, because there's no
Right.
mainland blood in the project. So essentially, just have your why behind the breeding that you're doing.
And I agree with you. That's a major key. When you're sitting down and looking at it, it's what is going to move it forward. And first, not every project needs to be super small. Not every project needs to be super big. But if you need to have that reason behind it, and then the vision to see it and push it through,
Exactly.
So if you could do your first pairing over again, would you change it?
Honestly, no, because I'm so stoked with how it turned out. I had that female from Brian Samala that has a good, no concrete locality information on her. So I'm not claiming she's one thing or another, but she has a lot of Madu influence to her.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I came across that male that you had, Joe, the 50% Madu, 50% old school, I was like, there you go. That's the match that I need to hopefully preserve some of that Madu influence. Because for me, Madu is my favorite locality. It's just the hardest to find. And even if you can find it, you better have deep pockets to get a hold of it. So
I know.
I'm stoked with how it turned out. So I wanted to change it.
No, I love that. That's awesome. Cool. All right, Leon, what you got, man? What's one mistake you've seen other breeders making that you avoided or that you learned the hard way?
As far as mistakes go, I would have to say getting into this and just wanting to breed. My first couple were white phase. I wasn't really passionate about it. I really didn't know my direction. I didn't want to pursue that project. I was just getting into it and getting my feet wet to start breeding, start learning the behavior, start learning my pattern and figuring out what worked for me. And it resulted in a lot of stuff I was okay with but wasn't happy with. You know what I mean?
Right.
It wasn't focused. I realized, when I first got into this, now I'm focusing a lot on my OG, Mochino, purple variances of Golden Child cows. I love cows. So that's one project I'm sticking with. I love Anthrax. I love Ocelot. I got a couple of those projects going right now. Also too, playing along that factor is just taking everybody's word and what the advice they had as set in stone. This is the way it had to be. Because like I said before, different strokes work for different folks. What might work for me might not work for you. You know what I mean? And I guess just taking my time with the whole ordeal and wanting to get breeding, and like Alastair said, having a purpose behind what you do. Now I have a couple of animals around here in genetics all over the place that I want to add this here or add this here for color. Maleficent. I would love to see her with my OG Phantom Marble, because to bring all that pattern up to the top and create that marble on top, as well as Maleficent's sides being completely dusted in brown and silver. You know what I mean? A purpose and an aim for what my projects are going for. Because like I said, when I got in this, I just wanted to get snakes and I wanted to get into breeding. There was no particular direction. There was no particular you know what I mean? I just wanted to breed.
Yeah. And I get that.
It's hard, man. Like I said, resisting the urge to just buy something that's beautiful and actually having a stated purpose for your project. So
it is. And I can agree with that. I definitely have been the guy that there's an entire episode Garrett did called "How Not to Lose Your Shirt." If you guys want to go look at it, because I mean, I don't know, I got the bug, and then within 18 months, I dropped an insane amount of money on a bunch of retics, and I don't even have all of them, now. Some of the projects I bought were just dumb, and or what I found is I was like, oh, I want my hand in this, and I want my hand in this, and I want my hand in this. And guys, with recessives, like, you definitely have to understand like what that timeline looks like, especially if you're going to put it into like a locality that either hasn't been done or minimally done, and there's not other ones out there. Like, the timeline for a recessive project, if you don't have a vision and a willingness to stick with it, it's a long-term project. I've talked about it before. You guys know that I want to do the blue hypo anery titanium, right? With the Madu influence, because the anery Madus are the bluest thing. But it's probably going to be 15 years before that combo comes out, right? And that's a triple recessive. My end goal is just going to be a 1 in, I think, 128 chance of getting it. And when Madus lay 15 eggs, it's like, geez, like, am I ever going to get it,
Yeah.
So that's one thing I would say to that question is, like, definitely pick your recessives, because otherwise it can very easily overwhelm you when you start doing the holdbacks. Like, all of a sudden you went from like, I've got 10 snakes, now I've got 40 snakes because of what I got to hold back to get my end project, so that would be the thing that I see is, like, don't pick, come in, have your fun in the beginning, but then start to focus on what recessives you really want to work with, because recessives are a whole nother game for the long run, especially if you're doing locality percentages in there as well. All right. Alastair, man, you're up first in the chute.
Let's do it.
What's your advice for managing expectations, like emotionally, financially, the hype, that first time jitter,
So managing expectations, I'll start with the financial aspect of it. So I would say first and foremost, it's not a get rich quick scheme. Know that.
It is not.
And two, most importantly, it's also not passive income, right? I think it's easy to, when you have your snakes at home and you've kind of gotten into your routine, you start thinking to yourself, how much more work could it really be, right? Probably not a lot, especially with these little babies, right? Wrong. It's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of work. And I'm not just talking about, cleaning the tubs, feeding them, changing the water, taking them out, socializing them. If you're trying to do this from a business standpoint, then you also have to factor in, marketing them, advertising them, being active on social media, Facebook, Instagram, going on podcasts, answering texts, DMs, the whole 9 yards. So just understand that it is a whole nother job. It's not passive income. It's a fun job. It's an amazing job, but it's still a job at the end of the day, and it's going to eat into your free time and your schedule. So that's something you have to be aware of and something you have to be okay with. As far as emotions go, I would say just remember why you got into this, for the love of the snakes and because it's all around just a fun experience, right? And just know that ups and downs are just part of the game, right? So we lost a couple eggs during the incubation process. I mean, they weren't really candling well to begin with, so I think they just weren't fertilized. But you still hold on to that hope, right? That, oh man, hopefully they'll make it. Hopefully they'll hatch. And then when they finally just decay and die off, it's a kick in the butt.
Yeah, for sure.
One step further, we actually lost the hatchling during the pipping phase too. So little guy pipped from the egg, thought everything was going just fine. Then the next day, come and check on him. He hasn't emerged from the egg. Egg's kind of quiet. All right, let's make the call to cut the egg. No movement. The little guy was gone. Seeing him make it that close to the finish line and still pass away, again, just another big kick in the butt. But then, as fate would have it, beautifully enough, that same day we had twins emerge from an egg. So
that's awesome.
You just gotta keep that glass half full mentality. just remember that you're just here for the fun, for the experience, and to hopefully spread some joy to some other folk.
No, that's 100%. I agree with you on that. Managing it though, I mean, emotionally it does. It hurts because like if you're like, these are my babies, like I did this, and then when something doesn't go well, it's like, oh, it's a cut in the heart, man.
Yeah, it's tough.
So,
it's tough.
All right, Leon, man, what you got?
As far as financially, like Alastair said, this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It is very much going to soak up a ton of your time. It's a constant balancing act. If you do not have a passion for these animals, I would definitely second guess what you're trying to do, because if you don't have a passion, it's not going to keep pushing you through. Like I said, the incubator issues. My daughter was born right around my second clutch dropping last year. I actually left work early, had a meeting with doctors because she got held over. My daughter's special needs. So she got held over at the hospital with an NG tube, and we were supposed to meet with the doctors. And I'm like, damn, I haven't checked on my snakes in like a day. Ran out of work to meet doctors, and I walked downstairs and I'm like, oh shit, there was a giant pile of eggs sitting there. So like that whole balancing act and emotional roller coaster, it's like no matter what your snakes are doing, life's still going to show up. So it's a giant balancing act. You know what I mean? You got to make time for it. And, much like Alastair said, dude, you think taking care of bees is rough? Humbling you real quick, you have a couple of clutches and actually go through with the marketing, the cleaning, the feeding, the trying to get babies to eat, and it's a whole new ballgame. I even told a couple of the OGs I talked to, I'm like, dude, this is no joke. This takes it and amplifies everything tenfold. Because, like, you're paying attention to the babies, and then all of a sudden you turn around and you're like, oh shit, my cages are dirty too.
Yeah.
And then, even with the babies being in an incubator right now, the eggs, like, I got to think about that timeline, scheduling vacation, going up to camp, balancing, just life. So it is definitely a passion-filled. I wouldn't even call it as a business. It's a hobby, because you have to love what you do. I wouldn't still be here. I would have got out last year with all those incubator problems, Was I coming into this thinking I could make some money out of it? Of course, everybody does. But then once you get in it and you're like, man, this is a second job, sometimes even a third job.
Right.
But it's just it's a crazy ride, man. But I wouldn't change it for the world. I love these animals. I love what I do. It's especially entertaining when I have family come over here and they don't understand the magnitude of the operation down here, and they come downstairs and they're like, oh my God, that snake is huge. And that operation is crazy. And I'm crazy. That's why I do it. I love these things,
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's easy. Like, as a pet, they're fairly inexpensive, right? Like, that's one meal every week when they're young, and then as they grow, like one meal is not a lot, and cleaning one cage is not a lot. And then you're like, it's easy when they're little. You're like, oh, I can do this. And then you get like me, and you got 55 of them, and it's I spend 3 nights a week rotating my entire evening cleaning tubs, food, and then the financial side of it that comes in. Like, rats are, rats, pigs, all that stuff's expensive. So it goes from, oh man, this is a $4 meal for one snake, $4 times, 20 adults. Like all of a sudden, holy shit, every week I'm running through $100 and, or more in food. So I get it.
Bedding, cages, all of the above.
Oh yeah. And then all the other stuff that comes with it. So, all right, Chris, what you got, man?
Well, with the money side, like everybody else has said, it's you just got to understand you're not gonna get rich overnight doing this. You have to have the passion for it. You can't. can't just go in thinking I'm going to retire, you know, manage that, understand what it goes into it. On the hype side of things, you kind of got to understand that even though you're getting a nice looking snake to you, there might be a better one that somebody has held back. You can get it, but it's going to cost you. You know, it's there, but it's probably double what you paid for. So while you're going to make something nice, you could possibly make something a little bit nicer in the future. You know, it's not saying you can't get there. You got to understand it's there. You know.
Oh yeah.
For me, I found it helped to be a slight bit of a pessimist, thinking as much as I want this to work, it's not going to on the breeding side of things. Not that it eases the pain if anything goes wrong. It just, you always had it in the back of your mind then that this is a reality, that this could happen, that this is going to be that knife that twists in your back or your heart or whatever. You know, so you got to...
Oh, yeah.
I feel you got to have that mentality going into it as well.
Right. No, for sure. And then it's always, you know, I mean, you guys know I worked for Reach Out and stuff, and I've generally, you know, you're like, okay, you know, the first time they can breed is around 4 years old, 5 years old. But I mean, I've got some females. I've been in this for this is 25, 8 years now. I got a couple of females down there that are literally 8 years old that I have bred. They're more than big, and they have never given me a clutch, you know, like whatever the reason being, right? And that's the kind of emotional side of it where you're like, oh, like, do I give up on her, you know? Like, I don't think so. I think some of them just want to breed later, or maybe it's me, who knows?
And one of the manage expectations or financial aspects, you know, one of the things I did to help mitigate some of my costs was I set up my own feeder colonies of rabbits and rats, you know, just to help. You know, not everybody can do it, you know, but it is something that, you know, part of the managing aspect of it, you know, that I don't think everybody thinks about. Like you had mentioned, it's $4 for a rat, you know, 15, 16 for a 3-pound rabbit. You know, I can buy a 50-pound bag of rabbit food for $15. You can go to a local farmer in the area and get some meat rabbits, and you got to be able to do the harsh part of dispatching them when the time comes, but I think it kind of goes with the territory.
True. But even with that, like it mitigates some of the cost, but your time is valuable. So like the trade-off, right? It's like, what do I have more of, time or money, you know? And that's where I tell everybody, I'm like, you need to understand that your time, you need to put a dollar amount on your time so that you understand what your business is costing you, right? Because it's not just the cleaning supplies, the paper, or the substrate, whatever you use, that's your time as well should be figured into that, you know? And then you need to put a dollar amount on that so that you're giving yourself a true idea of what your business is costing you. That's my 2 cents. I don't know. But all right, cool. All right, Leon, you're back up first, man, for the last question. What's something you did that you're really glad you took the time and money to do the right way? That you're like, this is what I look back on. I'm like, all right, I'm glad I did this the right way.
The well banks and all my equipment. Like I invested right away with a local cage builder. I got all of my cages the way I want them. I bought nice the first time. And like I said, it's always evolving. I just recently went over to ARS, total game changer from PVC. But yeah, I took the time out. My wife would disagree with me, but I think it was money well spent. It truly makes me happy down here. And I currently am still adding to the collection. I just put in an order the other day for some 8x3 deeps for my big girls. You know, I listen to my animals, and whenever I feel they're telling me they need something bigger or a different acclimation for their enclosure, it happens, you know.
Right.
And it'll be years before I make my money back. But I mean, in a way, it really, as long as I can fund my hobby and have some fun outside of it, you know, take the wife on vacation to, you know, sort of put a Band-Aid over that wound I've caused all year. Other than that,
It
like,
helps.
yeah, this year, anything that I've taken in is pretty much gone right back into investing in animals. You know, like I said, I've refocused. I'm now buying from some of the bigger breeders out there, the more well-known names that have some of the stuff like Chris said, the holdbacks. Yeah, it's a constant money pit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah. No, for
never
sure.
stops.
So yeah, that's one of the big keys right there that I agree with you. You know, the right equipment, good enclosures, good thermostats, guys. Good thermostats are honestly in the long run cheap insurance. So herp stats, yeah, like that's what I run, you know. So 100%. So all right, let me ask you this. Did you have something you underestimated in the beginning, like the cleaning and feeding? Did you underestimate it like did it become a reality after the first one?
The babies and adding that to the mix, like I said, there's always a balancing act with my time and, you know, making the family life happy as well and work. But once I threw babies in there, it was like a total game changer. I'm like, before I went into it, I thought, you know, I could pump out, you know, 4, 5, 6 clutches a year and I'm cool with it. I got it. That is something that will humble you real fast, really fast.
Oh yeah.
Because like I said, I turned around and my cages went to shit, and I'm like, oh my god, I got to shift over here now.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely cutting back on what I produce and making it more targeted.
I think it's a good thing, man. All right, yeah. Chris, what about you, man? What's something you're really glad you took the time or money to do right?
Setting up the cages was probably the number one thing I'm glad of. You know, like you said, herp stats. That's personally what I run. I remember thinking back to when I first had just 1 or 2 snakes back in the early 2000s. It was just a red light and a yellow light on them, heat lamp, and calling it good. Well, you start getting a few more than 2 animals, and that lighting bill goes right through the roof. So run the herp stats, run the heat panels, put the LEDs in there for them. You know, obviously a small heat bulb for them. But then I also kind of invested in some infrastructure. I put solar panels on my house to help offset the electricity. You know, it might not help as much as what you're hoping, but it's something, having backup to that, to the power source. Plus, if you hook it up to the batteries, if something were to happen, in Wisconsin here, if the power goes out in winter, it's going to get real cold because it can get -30 sometimes out there, you know. So having a battery backup to at least power the animals is critical. It's probably just as important as a generator, you know, in my mind, on something like that. You know, the other thing, you know, meeting these people in the industry, I started going to the NRABCs and the Tinleys and the Schomburgs, and well, that's where I met you. I met Garrett, you know, met Jake Klotz. He's been a wealth of knowledge for me. Amanda Bow, she's another one that I've used for information. You know, meeting some of these old, I don't want to say old timers, but like people that have been in this industry, you know, that know the ins and the outs and able to get the knowledge and draw that out of, you know, even just a local reptile distributor in my area, Tom Lossman, Reptile Tom, people know him. Meeting someone like that, someone that I can ask questions, bounce question off of, is knowledge is an expense you can't put a price tag on. You know, having that knowledge in your back pocket whenever you need it, it's a lifesaver sometimes, you know.
Right. No, 100%. And I'm glad you brought up the, you know, the solar panel or like having a generator, guys. Like, depending on where you live, you know, if you get somewhere that's prone to storms, you're up north, you know, something like that, that's something else that you need to bring into the expense to keep them safe, because It won't take long. You get cold, they'll die. So that's a great point to think about, especially if you're going to build a big collection, you know?
Right.
So I like that. All right. What about you? All right, Alastair, man. What's something that you're glad you really took the time and money to do right?
Yeah, equipment, like everyone said. In particular, the hatchling rack system that I got. So I got them V70s. I got them nice big tubs. You know, these babies are like average like 40 grams. So two main reasons I'm glad I did it is, one, they got room to move about, right? So they can climb up on their perch, they can get their exercise, they can use that temperature gradient. And then two, for me, is it gives me time to establish them and then also find the right homes for them and not be in a rush. You know, with the V70, I don't have to worry about them outgrowing that rack system in a week, a month, something like that. And then being put in the financial situation of, oh man, now I need to buy a whole new rack system. Where do I put the old one? Blah, blah, blah. I'm good for now, right? So I can get them established. I can get them their 6 meals before they're ready to fly the coop. And then I can find them, suitable owners, take my time, find them the right owners, people who know what they're getting into and can give them the right, the right home for the next 15 to 20 years, right?
Oh, yeah.
Another thing that I'm glad that I did, kind of like what these two guys touched on, is just finding the time to reach out and speak with mentors, right? I mean, there's a ton of great resources out there. You got Glenn's book, you got, all the different Facebook groups, you got YouTube, you got podcasts like this one. But being able to actually reach out to a human being and bounce your stupid questions off them, troubleshoot different scenarios, it's invaluable, And I've had the blessing of being able to, have Eric Lee, Lucas Bagnera, Andrew Acevedo, all in my corner, helping me, teaching me, and guiding me along the way. And that's been a huge, huge help for me. So I would say to anyone out there who's listening, if you have any questions, just reach out to someone, Despite all the drama we see, especially on Facebook, the Retic community as a whole is actually pretty warm and welcoming, especially when you reach out to people on a one-to-one basis. I've never been called stupid. I've never been turned away. I've never gotten a cold shoulder. Everyone that I've ever reached out to has always been awesome. So don't be afraid to reach out.
Yeah, I think that one-on-one, a lot of people, especially if they're new, they worry about that, because of the drama that we do see in the community, and it's dumb and I hate it, but it's just part of it, and it's part of any animal breeding and shit that you do. Yeah. But if you can look past that and take the time and reach out to somebody, they're all really willing to help.
Yeah, we all love these animals and we all love nerding out on them. So if you reach out to someone to talk about them, guaranteed they'll talk back.
Yeah, no, for sure. And guys, I've had Jake, I've had Lucas on here, I've had Eric Lee on here, all of those guys that and I haven't had Andrew on here yet. I need to get Andrew on here. I need to get Andrew. He's a buddy of mine. I'll convince him.
He's a wealthy man.
When he's not gallivanting off in some other foreign country, finding snakes in the wild, I'll see if I can get him on here one of these days. But yeah, guys, if Alastair's right, it is 100% a little bit scary when you're new, especially when you're watching the drama and the way that we can talk to each other and shit when it's all out in the open, because I think it's just an ego thing, right? To a point. But like behind closed or in a private message or on the phone, you will find that actually anyone that's been doing this a while is wanting to expand that knowledge to the people that are coming in, because there's lessons that don't have to be learned hard, that's for sure. So
and with that, with the new breeders coming in, if you reach out and they don't get back to you right away, understand we still do have full-time jobs that we have to go to. We're not able to just drop our phones and get back. Sometimes give us a little bit.
Oh yeah, no, and that is a good point. And be respectful of people's time. For sure, there's a balance there. Like there's a balance with everything else. Like if people message me, I'm on the East Coast. Sometimes I get I got a buddy of mine that he's in Oregon. I realize there's a 4-hour time difference. If he messages me at 11 o'clock my time, I get back to him the next day. But on the same token, I also said that. Like, I'm like, hey, man, if it's past a certain time, I don't ever want you to not send your message because I don't want you to forget. If it's something you're thinking about, send your message. But I'm going to respond the next day. Like, I'm not trying to do this at 11 at night, you know? So that's me, right?
Yeah.
But, don't be afraid to ask that question too. Like, hey, what timeline works for you, or what should I expect? That way you guys manage your expectations as well, and you don't feel like, oh man, I'm being ignored. And then also with that, we're all getting a bunch of messages. If it's been, I don't know, 48 hours and we didn't get back to you and we said we would, just shoot us a reminder. You know, sometimes like it gets lost in a sea of messages. I mean, I know I've told Alastair that when I worked for ROR, he'd message me. And he'd be like, hey, man, I haven't heard from you. I'm like, my bad, man. I'm freaking, you know, I'm hitting everybody. And I try to keep up with it, but I'm human too. So I know Chris has experienced that. And then on the same, you know, and then Leon hasn't bought from me when I was at ROR. But I definitely know that, you know, when he's hit me up, so there's been times where it's been like 2 days. And he's like, hey, I'm like, oh, man, I didn't answer this. I'm sorry.
I get it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's busy.
Yeah.
Well, guys, does anybody in the chat have any like specific questions for anyone, or like a question you want that we didn't hit on? I know it's, you know, 4 questions. That's why we do it here. Anything that you guys want to ask before we jump off here? Give them a minute. But while they're thinking of that, guys, 100%. Again, I really appreciate you guys coming on. I think you guys gave a great wealth of information. This shirt, the trash shirt, is that what you're asking, Susie? This is a hashing shirt, and then on the back it says "Never Leave Camp." So if you want to know about this, it's called the Hash House Harriers. It's an international running club with a drinking problem, and the trash is from Carolina, out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. And so this was my trash shirt. So that's where that comes from. All right, Leon, you got a question. Oh, you really a GM tech?
Yeah, because I used to work with Eric Boff at North Star. He's my really good friend. I love Eric to pieces, man.
Oh, gotcha.
I actually told him I was going to be on here too.
After a retic sheds big ones, do you feed them right away, or do you give them a few days before you feed them? What do you guys do?
I feed.
Feed. Because if they usually, especially for the older ones, their shed cycle is usually kind of long, so they've probably gone a little bit without eating. So typically feed. Gotcha.
Yeah. So, and again, that's the way it goes. Like with my babies, I watch them, but once they hit adult size, I have them on a set schedule. You know, unless I start seeing them like slim down, or if they're like, oh, I gave you a really big meal, you probably don't need one for a little bit. But I get you. All right, Jason, what's everyone's main focus for production? So we'll start with Leon. We'll work our way around.
Meaningful production. Producing stuff that I want to see. Turning projects in directions that I want to see them go. I want my person that wants to come to me for something to be passionate about what I'm passionate about, so we can share that together, and I can give them everything they want. You know what I mean? My customers are 100% number one. Like I'll drop anything for these guys and answer, and I tell them, you know, when you buy from me, you get my support for the life of that animal, anytime you need. You know what I mean? So like some targeted breeding. You know what I mean? I want to continue to make my cows. I love them to pieces. Anthrax stuff, adding some crazy stuff in there, and just creating healthy babies. You know what I mean? Giving the customer a great experience with it. I don't want somebody getting into it, not understanding what they're doing, what they're getting themselves into. A lot of my people that are local, I invite them over to my house. You want a baby? Right. Come pick it out. But you're going to also see what comes in store of that. Because when you walk in my door and see a 17-foot retic to your left-hand side, that could be that snake in a couple years. You know what I mean?
Right.
You need to understand the full ramification of what you're getting yourself into. Not only for them, but for the safety of the animal. You know what I mean?
Right. No, 100%. What about you, Chris?
So I like the Jampea stuff, so I'm focusing on that. I just need to find me a pure female now to go for my male. But kind of like what Leon had said, work on certain locality or certain morph projects that you really enjoy and make. And this is subjective, but make the best looking morph that you can. Obviously what I like, somebody else might not, but at least try and have a good focus on what I'm looking at. I'm going after the cow stuff in the Superdorf game. I want to go after Motley Golden Childs for that nice, beautiful black snake. I have the Halmaharas for the locality that I want to work at, but I also want to introduce Indo Caramel into that, or Orange Glow, or both, just because I think that would really enhance. You get that mix there. So that's kind of my focus. And I'm not gonna, one, maybe 2 clutches a year is all I ever plan on producing. We don't need 1,000 clutches coming out every year.
Gotcha. Alastair.
The focus is mainly just pure Super Dwarf and pure locality. So clutch I just had right now is pure Super Dwarf. I recently picked up 1.1 of pure Calatoa from Andrew Acevedo. I've been on Reach Out Reptiles locality sign up list for every locality for a little bit now, just waiting for something to drop. And then I also reached out to Lucas because I know Lucas is planning on doing a Calatoa clutch in the near future, hopefully. So I told him, man, I'm first in line. That's where my passion is, just pure SD and pure locality stuff.
Nice. So here's the great thing about it, guys. Like, you heard 3 different answers. They've got 3 different focuses. That's where they're saying, like, focus on what you want to breed. What you want to breed. You don't have to breed everything. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to be the jack of all trades. There's enough of us. There's enough of this pie to share that if you focus on your project, then you get to present the best in that, project if you're going after it that way. And I think if you get too in over your head with too much, then you'll start to see it suffer. So love that. That's awesome. You guys have been great. So the one thing with this one, the last piece of advice that I'm going to give you guys is for your females, right? Watch a video, get over to someone, if you have the opportunity, that has adult females that you can learn how to start palpating, right? And because as your females are coming into age, I tell everybody, palpate them every time that they go into the cage. Just run your fingers down, because if you do that, the minute that something starts to feel different, that's when you're going to be like, oh, there it is. It's that, and I know it's that guesswork when you've never done it before, you haven't ever felt it. But I took that idea from a buddy of mine that used to look for counterfeit bills. And he's like, you would think that we would look at a bunch of counterfeit bills to see what's going to be wrong. But in reality, they look at real bills so much that it focuses out if something stands out to them on a fake bill, right? So I was like, okay, if I'm palpating every time that they're going in and I feel that lump right past their stomach and then there's nothing behind it, but the minute that those follicles start, I'm going to be like, boom, 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 what is that? That's something different. So if you're used to palpating and knowing what it doesn't feel like, the minute that they start building, you're going to feel that difference. They're there. And as they grow, man, they start to get more pronounced. So, that's my piece of advice to you guys that's unsolicited and, not on the questions. But if you're a new guy or a new gal, whatever, doing this, palpate your females that are becoming of age every time that you put them back in the cage, and just get used to that feeling, because when it changes, it's going to help you out and you're going to be like, boom, it's on, light bulb, and feel it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great advice.
So, all right, guys. Well, hey, man, it's been great. You guys are awesome, right? Alastair, Leon, Chris, can't thank you enough for coming on and
appreciate you, man.
Enjoying an hour with me on a Tuesday. So, guys, we will see you in 2 weeks. Have a good one.
Adios.
Thank you, guys.
Look, Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth, the wisdom is sound in the Retic Rundown. We're breaking new ground. From the jungle's deep to the captive scene, Retics rule the world if you know what I mean. With patterns so bold and sizes extreme, in the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Welcome to the Retic